On today's show, the special connection between Alex Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom. And is there the possibility that someone could actually catch Ovechkin? Next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the injury to Aliaksei Protas. When you take a look at this team and what they've been able to accomplish, it's been about a lot of the younger players stepping up. Aliaksei Protas has definitely been one of those players, put up 30 goals this season. How will the Capitals overcome, and what does it mean for Aliaksei? I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about, is there the possibility that someone could actually catch Ovechkin? It's interesting that we've been laser focused on Ovechkin catching Gretzky. But is there the possibility that a current NHL player or future player could catch Ovechkin? I'll talk about that. But just to get it going here, we'll talk about the special relationship between Nick Backstrom and Alex Ovechkin. And, the thing of it is that when Ovechkin achieved greatness, he was able to catch and pass Wayne Gretzky. There was always the feeling that too bad this wasn't Nick Backstrom assisting on this goal, as Nick Backstrom has assisted on more Alex Ovechkin goals than anybody else. But it was Tom Wilson and it was Dylan Strome getting in on the action. But like I said in yesterday's show, maybe that is a bit more fitting, as Tom Wilson is perceived to be the next captain of this team. So but what better way for Ovechkin to achieve greatness from getting fed from the future captain to the current captain? Maybe I'm overthinking it here, but there is a special relationship between Nick Backstrom and Alex Ovechkin. And you take a look at their careers historically. Alex Ovechkin is the kind of guy that has loved living in the limelight. He is the guy that, had the hot hockey stick that was on fire, wore the big cowboy hat. He loved all of that. And then you take a look at Nick Backstrom. He shunned the limelight. He was the guy that kind of lived in the shadows. He was the guy that was comfortable just feeding those really great passes to Alex Ovechkin. But the cool moment in all of this is that we know that Nick Backstrom is on the LTIR right now, is that he was able to be with Alex Ovechkin after the game, and it was truly a special moment. It was one of those moments that kind of hit you squarely in the feels. And if you're a guy out there and you cried, I don't think anything less of you, because it was definitely one of those moments where it could definitely bring a tear to your eye if you are a longtime Capitals fan. But let's talk about that special moment when Alex Ovechkin had the puck, and they shared a special moment between him, Nick Backstrom, and a hug between the two of them. And Backstrom described the occasion as, quote, a very special night, unquote, and honestly, how could it not be? That this is something that has been building for such a long time. And, even take a look at last season or even over the summer, there was questions out there if Alex Ovechkin was even going to be able to catch Gretzky under his current contract. So it's good to see that dream finally come true. And what better way to spend a moment than with, like I say, a guy that's assisted on more of your goals than anyone else. These two legends have been pivotal in reshaping Washington, D.C. into a hockey town. Not to say that there haven't been great players, because there have been before in D.C., but I think that Alex Ovechkin is what really put hockey on the map in D.C. Now, talking about the dynamic duo, if you will, since the moment Backstrom was picked by the Capitals in 2006 in the NHL draft, a moment that Ovechkin celebrated. These guys have been a dynamic duo and kind of improbable, but in a lot of ways, maybe perfect. Like I say, one is a bit over the top at the time, at least, and the other guy was a little bit more reserved. They worked together to lead the Capitals to incredible heights, including, of course, winning the Stanley Cup in 2018. The high water mark for this team up until now. Fingers are crossed that maybe they can achieve great things yet again, maybe this season. Backstrom, who assisted on an amazing 279 of Ovechkin's 895 career goals, really praised Ovi's remarkable longevity in the league, emphasizing how challenging it is to sustain such an elite performance over the years. And that's one of the things about Alex Ovechkin, and I'll talk about him a little bit more in depth in the next segment as well, is that he has been truly that Russian machine that never breaks. That a part of the secret sauce of Alex Ovechkin is that he has been able to be relatively healthy. That injury this season, the fracture to his leg, was the most time that he has missed thus far. But the big thing, and when we're already talking about Alex Ovechkin's final year, ostensibly next season, it's about a lasting impact and legacy. Now, you take a look at it, even with Backstrom kind of stepping away from hockey, LTIR, probably his last year with the Capitals in some capacity. It's about his impact and legacy with the team is undeniable. Even Nick Backstrom. And, it's a tough story with Backstrom as well, is there was high hopes for him, is that he had that hip resurfacing procedure done. Why? Because he could not sustain his day-to-day life as is. He couldn't tie his shoes. He couldn't play with his kids or pick them up. It's not that he wanted to do it. It's that he had to do it. And then after that procedure went into the summer, and it seemed like everything was okay. He actually was playing competitive hockey over in Sweden. And, we went into the season thinking that maybe he's going to be okay. Maybe just somehow he is going to be okay. And as it turns out, it wasn't the case. And I think that he saw a guy like Connor McMichael breathing down his neck, or maybe saw a changing the guard. So it was definitely a change last season for the Capitals, as Nick Backstrom, who has been a big part of the team, stepped away. And how that has changed the team in the big picture of things. Ovi expressed so much gratitude for Backstrom's role in his journey. And it's moments like these that remind us why we love the sport of hockey so much. There's a lot of different things about this year's season that could be the makings of a movie. I'm talking about Alex Ovechkin and, of course, surpassing Gretzky, the special relationship between Ovechkin and Backstrom, and just how the Capitals went from the last team to qualify for a playoff spot to the first. There is a lot to like. Now, celebrating together after the game on Long Island, which featured a memorable 22-minute mid-game ceremony and a lively post-game celebration, the Capitals returned to D.C. to keep the festivities going. And Backstrom talked about it, calling him, quote, a pure goal scorer, unquote, with a shot that just cannot be matched. But beyond the ice, it's Ovechkin's genuine personality that resonates with fans everywhere. In his younger day, his larger-than-life persona. But what you're seeing is more of a reflective, a more humble captain of this team. And a lot of that is age. A lot of that is being a father. And a lot of that is just kind of seeing where you place yourself in your NHL career, the sands of his NHL career, that we know there's not a lot of time left for him playing in the NHL. So it's important to just respect and understand what he means for this team. And as far as Alex Ovechkin is concerned, I think that ultimately he is seeing that as well. But in a lot of ways, what a time to be a Capitals fan. This achievement marks not just a milestone for Ovechkin, but the entire organization. As long as I've been doing this show for Locked On Capitals, it's been about, can Alex Ovechkin catch Gretzky? There's even a folder on YouTube talking about his goal chase that's been there as long as I've hosted the show. So every show that talks about that goals chase, click on that and you'll be able to follow the journey as long as this channel has been active anyway. But all things considered, as a Capitals fan, for long before I even hosted this show, it is really a great moment to see this happen. And, just a really, to reflect on a special relationship between Backstrom and Ovechkin. Just take a look at the Twitter page for Locked On Capitals. I took that at a Capitals game. Just a perfect situation, a hand in glove, if you will. Backstrom assisting on so many Ovechkin goals. It's truly a cherry on the top, if you will, that he was able to accomplish it and that Backstrom was able to be in attendance. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about, is there the possibility that someone could actually catch Ovechkin? We've been laser focused all season about Ovechkin catching Gretzky, but who's aiming for Ovechkin's goal? I'll talk about it straight ahead. Ever check your banking account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now, I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with Partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this next segment here, talking about a topic that's been spoke of here more recently, that, hey, Ovechkin catch Gretzky, but who is aiming for Ovechkin now? In years to come, who are we going to talk about so many goals away from Ovechkin? And who are the likely candidates? I'll break that all down in this segment. So let's dive into that. We're talking about the historic news, of course, in hockey with what Alex Ovechkin has done on Sunday. Ovechkin made big waves by scoring .895 against the Islanders. Of course, we hope that it happened at Cap One, but it was a historic moment, surpassing Wayne Gretzky's long-standing record of .894. There was the distinct possibility that it could have happened playing the Blackhawks, but it didn't happen. He didn't want any empty netters. He wanted them, quote, fair and square. Now, an achievement that many people didn't think was going to happen, especially a couple years ago. Maybe he'll catch him. Maybe it'll need a longer contract. It got done. But now, this milestone not only places Ovechkin at the top of the scoring leaderboard, but also puts him in a unique position as he gears up for the final stretch of this season. And the last year of his contract with the Capitals is next season. Who knows how far he might extend that record? So, you take a look at what he was able to put up. He was able to surpass, get number .895. But how many goals do you think is possible for the remainder of this season? Trying to be realistic. And then also, how many goals possibly do you think by the end of his time with the Capitals? So he's at .895. What do you think? Could he get 5, 6 more goals? What are your thoughts? Let me hear on Twitter or on YouTube that we have seen growth there. I mean, he could far exceed that. He could also limit that. So it's interesting to see how far he can truly drive this one into the outfield, if you will. Can he truly hit it over the fences and make it a milestone that no other place or no other player will ever be able to touch? Because you take a look at Gretzky. How long has he held on to that title? Quite some time. A title that no one thought was going to be topped. Now, this incredible milestone places him in a unique position. And ultimately, what is the secret sauce, like I talked about in the first segment? It's a mix of physicality and durability. As we think about potential challengers, it's hard not to appreciate the perfect mix of physicality and durability Ovechkin brings to the table. He is a guy that has a strict, regimented workout style that has evolved over time. He realized that at 39 years old, he's not going to work out at the same pace that he did when he was 27. And ultimately, having a great staff around him and just keeping himself in good shape, despite the fact that he has said in interviews that he has Coca-Cola in his water bottle when he's sitting on the bench and has a fondness for Subway sandwiches and spaghetti, those kind of things. But he's been remarkable, healthy throughout his career, avoiding significant injuries. Like I talked about in the first segment there, the injury that he faced this season against the Utah Hockey Club, that collision with Jack McBain sidelined him for the most games in his entire career. That's why I think he is in the position that he's in right now. You take a look at a lot of the players that might be challenging him, they have already faced substantial injury. Now, a crucial factor that contributes to his success, while young stars like Auston Matthews are certainly impressive with 398 goals in 623 games, Ovechkin's track record of 398 in just 632 really underscores his longevity and consistent performance. So you take a look at it, how he was able to accomplish what he has been able to accomplish is by putting the work in, quite simply. That Auston Matthews might be a guy that is able to challenge him. I think that he has faced a substantial amount of injury, that it is not going to be easy even for a guy like him. And speaking of durability, let's talk about the moment that Ovechkin's minimal downtime. Like I said, his longest injury was just 16 games this season. When you compare that to Matthews, who's missed 20 games in his second season, it really makes you think about the challenges that lie ahead for anyone trying to reach Ovi's goal. There is a website in D.C. called The Russian Machine That Never Breaks, named because that's what Alex Ovechkin has been, infallible for the most part, not facing any substantial amount of injury. Now, looking ahead, if Ovechkin maintains his current trajectory, we could be looking at a final tally somewhere between, let's guess, 930 or 935. There's young talent out there, like I've talked about, Auston Matthews. Some people have said Leon Draisaitl. And those are just the ones, kind of off the top of our head there, that there is the possibility that there's a younger star that could rise through the ranks with truly premier talent like Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard, and not to mention the players that are going to come here in this season's draft. That on paper, there could be a player that challenges Ovechkin at some point. Is it going to be anytime soon? I don't think that is going to be the case. So you take a look at it, what we have to acknowledge at this point is what Ovi has been able to accomplish, doing the unthinkable thing. You take a look at Gretzky, he has held on to that goal scoring title for a long time. And like I say, if you take a look at it, there's probably some people listening to this show or watching this that weren't even alive when Gretzky achieved his milestone. So think about how old you will be if you want to gauge it in the same terms for Ovechkin. At the end of the day, we're happy he was finally able to get it done. And now the Capitals can concentrate on what's important, and that's winning hockey games consistently. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Aliaksei Protas' injury. A guy that has grown by leaps and bounds, put up 30 goals this season. Can you believe it? So what are the Capitals going to do in his absence, and what to expect from Protas when he does come back? I'll discuss straight ahead. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. And listen, if you are involved in the hiring and the firing and paper applications and all of the nonsense that's associated with it, make your job that much more easy easier with Indeed. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in this final segment here, we're talking about Aliaksei Protas' injury. And, you take a look at this. We talked about the trade deadline not too long ago and that the Capitals didn't need to make any big moves because this lineup, this roster has been so rock solid, and it has been for the most part. So the Capitals were pretty quiet on the trade deadline, only trading for and acquiring Anthony Beauvillier. So what happens? We open up the cupboard. Uh-oh, it's pretty empty. We didn't prepare for this. So Anthony Beauvillier, Ryan Leonard, these kind of guys are going to have to dig deep and take it to the next level. Because who do we have waiting in the wings? We have Ethan Frank, as far as a forward is concerned. We have Alexeyev. We have Dylan McElrath. As far as blue liners are concerned, that this is not optimal timing. The fact that Aliaksei Protas is now weak to week. So let's dive into that in the final segment of the show. Is out for an extended period due to a lower body injury. We know that he sustained a skate cut to his left foot. And, injuries of that nature sometimes aren't real easy or they don't heal very quickly or rapidly, if you will. So this is not optimal timing. And this isn't a player that's, a fourth liner, even though the fourth line for the Capitals is really rock solid. What I'm trying to say is he is a player that holds significant value. Any player out there that can put up 30 goals, at this point of the season is definitely a valuable piece to your roster. Now, Protas' impressive season statistics. We have seen him grow by leaps and bounds. 66 points total, 30 goals and 36 assists in 76 games. Quite impressive if you want to kind of track what he has done here in the recent years. This season, 30 goals. Last season, 6. The season before that, 4. And his first season in the NHL, 3. So he went from 6 goals in 78 games to 30 goals in 76 games. If you want to talk about jumping to the moon, that is definitely what Aliaksei Protas has done this season. Now, the injury details that occurred while attempting a shot, colliding with defenseman Wyatt Kaiser. He was in visible pain and needed assistance to the bench. So you take a look at it week to week. Well, that means, pretty much the remainder of the season, I guess, unless something changes here in short order. That if there is any good fact about the whole thing is that the Capitals have it buttoned up, that we know that they will be in the playoffs. But if he is missing while the playoffs start, and we don't know if that's the case, but it's a possibility, what is that going to mean for the Capitals? That's going to mean that Anthony Beauvillier, a guy that they acquired, the only guy they acquired on the trade deadline, and Ryan Leonard, the crown jewel, as far as Capitals prospects are concerned, are really going to have to earn their worth. It's not going to be Ryan Leonard just going out there and having fun. We're going to expect a whole lot more from him. Anthony Beauvillier, like I said, was the one that drew in his spot. Beauvillier was a healthy scratch in the previous game. So you take a look at what Beauvillier did when he first came to the team, dynamic, engaged. But, we saw a bit of dip in production. But now we're going to need to see a whole lot more from him going forward. So not an ideal position for the Capitals to be in. So that's what they have as far as depth is concerned, is Beauvillier. They have Ethan Frank, Ryan Leonard, these kind of guys that are going to slot in wherever Spencer Carberry wants to put them in. Or, if we're not getting the production from those players, there's the possibility that they may have to draw from a player from Hershey. But that's going to be a big responsibility. And one of the things that's kind of getting drawn into focus is that we talked about not wanting to mess up team chemistry. But what's the case now if we don't have a viable option to fill in for Aliaksei Protas? A huge dude, a tall man, has a lot of tools in his tool set, a guy that could post up in front of the netminder for deflections and look for, second opportunities, those kind of things, and just a great skater, a great shot, just a great all-around player that players like Aliaksei Protas don't grow on trees. So it is definitely going to put the Capitals in a tough spot. Hopefully that Protas can recover quicker than what is projected at any event. But a tough position for the Capitals as they're going through a bit of a rough patch right now. Is that on top of the world at points, tied for the best team in the NHL, but has struggled as of late. And I think that if you're honest, just taking a look at the wins and losses as of late for the Capitals, it has been a rough go of it. So we hope the Capitals can find a way to turn it around, and they'll be able to do it by either A, the next man standing up and taking on a bigger role, or hopefully Aliaksei Protas is able to join the team sooner than later. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL as they have you covered 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.